everybody. This is William del Pilar, and this is Fired Up California. And I am riding solo today as my pirate partner, Tyler Collins, is off on vacation in beautiful Japan. I assumed it was Tokyo. I've been to Tokyo, beautiful, beautiful city. Oh, it's huge. And I had an interpreter. First time I really dug into sushi and I loved it. So I hope he's having as good a time as I had when I was in that city. But for you guys, I've got a great show for you today. We are going to talk about In and Out, a California mainstay. When you think California and burgers, you think In and Out. Guess what? They're out of here. Then we're going to talk about the Medicaid meltdown and the fact they are broke by billions and are going to take from the general fund. We're also going to revisit the LA wildfires. It just can't escape us. It won't let us go. In this case, it's the Mayor Bass recall and her current polling numbers. And then from there, what does Trump have to do with UC San Diego? We love to keep our local city in Fired Up California. And then we're going to close it out with our popular and ever-growing popular or in popularity, the Cali-Blitz. And that's when I look at multiple topics around the state and I give you my quick take on them all. So with that, do not forget to like and share this podcast once you're done with it. But also, do not forget to head on over to grumblingsmedia.com, bookmark it, because you can find this podcast as well as my Fired Up National Talk podcast, my Red, White, and Rude, which is pop culture and culture, because politics is downstream of culture, and Points on the Board, where politics and sports collide. So let's get, and do not forget, you can catch us also on YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. So let's get down to it, my friends. Our first take is going to be California dreaming no more. In and Out and corporate giants flee the Golden State. So to bring you up to par here, In and Out Burger, it's a beloved California fast food chain since 1948. Woo, it's been around for a while, and they've decided to partially relocate its corporate operations. So the company has maintained its primary headquarters in Baldwin Park, California, and it's operated a secondary corporate office in Irvine, Orange County since 1994. And for those of y'all not aware, Irvine actually houses, or at least used to house, many corporations here from other countries. So, example, there were corporations that would establish themselves in the U.S., and Irvine would be a spot where they would have their headquarters. At the time they established these, anywhere from the 40s, 50s, 60s to the 80s, it was much cheaper and profitable. In California, look, I've been around the world. California is one of the most beautiful climates you will ever find. However, those are days of yore. As it stands now, this move, in February 2025, they announced it would close its Irvine office by 2029. So it's a slow move, and they will consolidate the California corporate functions in Baldwin Park while establishing a new Eastern Territory office in Franklin, Tennessee. A lot of companies are going to Tennessee. A lot of former constituents of California are going to Tennessee. So this move will shift about 200 corporate jobs from Irvine to Tennessee as part of what I am being told is an eastward expansion strategy. And In-N-Out has clarified it's not abandoning California entirely, at least today. Its Baldwin Park headquarters and obviously all their restaurants will remain here operational. I mean, this is their bread and butter, but their brain is now going to be in two spots. The decision reflects the challenges that the state's business climate, it's terrible, including high taxes and regulations. And look, that's created what you would call a strategic redistribution of not only In-N-Out's corporate presence, but other organizations, other corporations. You all may not be aware because the media does not talk about this, but several major corporations have relocated their headquarters, and that's the whole gist. In-N-Out is just the latest, and since it's such a known entity that quantifies, and when you think about the name In and Out, you quantify California. But they're not the only ones. And there's been a noticeable uptick since 2020. Some of the examples: Tesla, they moved from Palo Alto to Austin, Texas in 2021. Hewlett Packard Enterprises, HP, they shifted their headquarters from San Jose to Spring, Texas. That was in 2020. Oracle, they relocated their headquarters from Redwood City to Austin, Texas. Chevron, they announced in 2024 a move from San Ramon, California to Houston, Texas. And that's after 140 years in this state. Realtor.com, it's fairly new in terms of Realtor.com. They departed Santa Clarita for Austin, Texas in February, this past February. SpaceX, they're moving from Hawthorne, California to Starbase, Texas. I had to double check that, Starbase, Texas as well. So what my notes say: Charles Schwab from San Francisco to Westlake, Texas in 2020. So how many have left? How many of these stores or corporate offices have left? Well, the count varies, but studies suggest dozens of significant companies have left since 2020. A Hoover Institution, they're one of those think tanks, they have a report that documented 352 headquarter relocations from California between 2018 and 2021. And that rate doubling in 2021 alone. Texas has been the top destination. In fact, I think every big move I stated was in Texas. And they do have a program in place that's trying to convince companies to head on to Texas. Texas is another state where a lot of constituents have relocated as well. But there's also Nevada, Arizona, and obviously Tennessee. Smaller firms and startups have also exited, though comprehensive data is not known. So right now we're in the process of organizing our business formally. We've had our couple years of losses operating as a two-man show. We're like, okay, we're going to make this a business now. We're seeing the numbers, and thank you for that. Our numbers are growing. I remember we had less than 10 our first few podcasts, and now we're in the thousands and growing. But it's taking a lot of hard work. Now it's time to, what's it saying? Ramp up the ante or up the ante. And it was a given it was going to be here in California. I'm having second thoughts about that. We'll decide here sooner than later, as in this coming week, to be quite frank. But that said, they may gain us, they're exponentially losing dozens. So why are they leaving? Well, corporations cite several reasons for departing California. High taxes, as constituents cite that. Look, California has an 8.84% corporate tax rate and a 13.3% top personal income tax rate. That's the highest in the country. And that contrasts with states like Texas and Tennessee, who have no state income tax. Now, their property taxes are another story, but you're not paying state income tax. I used to live in Florida, and I loved it. And it's great, especially if you're young and you don't own property yet, you know. But there's a regulatory burden as well, strict labor laws. Think AB 5. Environmental regulations and energy policies. All this increased costs, and it creates operational complexity. Obviously, the cost of living, soaring housing and living expenses. Look, especially in tech hub areas like the Bay Area, it makes it hard to attract talent compared to more affordable states. If you can't afford to have a decent life, or all your checks going to pay the bills and there's nothing left over, where in other states there will be plenty left over, you think about moving. Energy costs. Obviously, high electricity prices. There was a lady, I forget, out in the desert somewhere, and it was an actual bill of 1 month, like $1,500 or close to a couple thousand. I can't remember, but it was exorbitant. It was unrealistic to maintain, and it hit her. And the politicians, some of her representatives, were trying to help her, but that's because the utilities are in bed with the politicians, regardless of what the politicians want to tell you. So those energy costs on top of every other cost, they're making people think about, we got to get out of here. Then you have the political environment. Look, you have executives criticizing California's progressive policies under Newsom, under Brown. They're anti-business. especially on labor and climate issues. And all of this has made it extremely difficult. All these factors collectively, they literally they destroy a lot of profitability, and they push companies towards states with lower costs and fewer restrictions. So that's not it. That's not all of it. So what else do you have with this, my friends? Well, you also get job losses. Corporate relocations have resulted in a lot of job losses, though exact figures depend on whether the operations remain in California. For example, they're in the process of moving. And some of them are going to be in two spots, but they haven't quite decided how many is going to be in one spot versus other. So, for example, a place that's going to be in both California and say Texas, or as In and Out is going to be both in, well, let's say Tesla, where they're transitioning, or others. They're going to have more in California for now, but will eventually shift those over to Texas. Whereas In and Out may keep the bulk here and shift over to Tennessee until it just becomes unprofitable. They'll always have their franchises here because that's their bread and butter. But at the end of the day, and they were extremely successful. In fact, their first closure they've ever had in its existence was in Oakland recently over the last couple of years, not because of sales, but because of crime. So Chevron, for example, here, its headquarter move impacts hundreds of jobs directly, and there's thousands more potentially affected if refineries close. And that's currently unconfirmed, but it's more than apt to happen, and I expect it to happen. So Tesla, as I mentioned, they relocated around 1,000 headquarter jobs to Texas in 2021, but they do have a Fremont factory, and that retains its manufacturing roles. And California hates Tesla. So at what point does Elon say enough of y'all and takes those jobs away? HP and Oracle, they each displace anywhere from 500 to 1,000 high-paying tech jobs from the Bay Area. Oracle kept a significant of their California staff, about 6,900 versus 2,500 in Texas as of 2024. But expect the same thing. Is it worsens here, and it will, or rather, there's a good chance it may. Let me reframe that. It may, unless we, the public, start voting in different politicians. But that could change. And then obviously In and Out, the Irvine closure shifts about 200 corporate jobs to Tennessee, and obviously the restaurant jobs are unaffected. SpaceX has likely moved hundreds of administrative and engineering roles to Texas. Look, these estimates, they're all suggesting thousands of corporate jobs have left since 2020. And here's the kicker. These are primarily high salary positions, and that means less taxes. So some companies do retain operational facilities, and that does soften the total impact. But you've got to realize something, my friends. It's going to get worse. And these are corporate companies. What about the everyday businesses, small and medium-sized businesses? Yeah, they close. And the ones that have moved, have relocated when possible, creates more job losses. Retail and hospitality. The rising minimum wage, $20 an hour for fast food workers since 2024, and costs have led to closures. Rubio's Coastal Grill, that's Rubio's fish tacos. 48 locations, hundreds of jobs lost in 2024. Many independent businesses. Manufacturing and logistics. I did not even realize there was still manufacturing here, but there is. So smaller firms facing regulatory and tax pressures. They've moved in Nevada or Arizona. Tens of thousands of jobs potentially lost over the past decade. This isn't small chump change. We are truly becoming a caste system. The corporations and the rich that are still here, and then the poor that service them. AB5 has disrupted industries like trucking and the media. They've eliminated or displaced thousands of contractor jobs. What they're saying is, companies are saying, look, we can't hire you as we used to in the past. We're going to hire somebody else to do freelance work. Small businesses employing nearly 30% of California's workforce have seen a net decline, with closures outpacing openings. It's likely costing tens of thousands of jobs in recent years. So what's the impact on tax-paying citizens? You, me, Tom, Dick, Harry, everybody else? Well, The corporate and business exodus affects tax-paying residents directly. It's a revenue loss. Departing firms reduce corporate tax income. Tax is gone. And that increases reliance on individual taxpayers. When high-end taxpayers leave, that means less income tax. So California's budget is dependent on high earners, and that's facing deficits, as we're going to talk about in the Cali-Blitz and with the Medicaid section. So economic fallout, job losses decrease local spending, reduce sales tax revenue, and they strain public services like education and infrastructure. So you see, my friends, all this has a ripple effect. How's it go? Ooh, trying to do my ripple. Then there's the population drop. Over 500,000 tax-paying residents have left between 2020 and 2023 per census estimates. These are tax-paying professionals, a good chunk of them. What's replacing them? Mainly right now, illegals that don't pay taxes or pay less in taxes than what they report, if that's even done. So this also contributed to the loss of a congressional seat in 2020, and potentially they're saying 4 to 5 more by 2030. I don't believe illegals should count towards the census. They're not here legally, and they go back and forth as they please. But then again, never let a issue like that dissuade activist pigs of judges and progressives. And I loathe, Larry Sharp, a libertarian, who I produced their show, Free for All. Check it out if you're a libertarian. He said best, he hates these judges. They don't follow the Constitution. You want to be activists? Be activists in line with the Constitution, which in essence means you're not really activists. You're following the Constitution. But anyway, speaking of the illegals, California has experienced a rise in illegal immigration. Now, it's stopping once because of Trump, but the numbers are there, and it's influenced by policy and geography. Policy, we are a sanctuary state. Geography, hey, it's nice and warm, and it's we're a border state. Because we're a border state, we see a high migrant inflow. When I first moved to California and I went to Imperial Beach, within, I think, a couple of days, day or two since after I moved here, I was watching this lady cross the border. I'm like, isn't that the border? And my friend looked at me, yeah, that happens all the time. Border Patrol will come around and grab her. And I'm looking around, there's no Border Patrol. I'm like, this woman's going to escape. They may track her down later, but what the hell? That's what happens in the border state. So, as a border state, we had over 2 million Southwest border encounters, as reported by Customs and Border Protection in 2024. Again, we're sanctuary status. SB 54, implemented in 2017. And then you have local policies in cities like Los Angeles, and they limit federal immigration cooperation, which attracts more illegals because they feel safer here than they would. And the reason they say they do it is because, we need them to be able to understand you can cooperate with the police in this and turn in the bad guys. Look, since the history of illegal immigration, that has never happened. It doesn't happen in barrios or ghettos. Because of what Democrats have done, there's a complete distrust of police. So that's a lie unto itself. So there are estimates of just 2.2 million lived in California in 2023, and that's up from prior years. Then you got the social benefits, expanded Medi-Cal, which we're going to talk about too, California's version, for undocumented immigrants, implemented in 2024, and other services. They draw arrivals. They're like, California is the promised land. If you illegal, we get to work and not pay our taxes, and we get free medical. Oh, yeah. It's strange resources. And what's happening at the same time? Well, the tax revenue is shrinking. Hey, y para mi paisanos, I have no ill will for you, but there's a proper way to do it, and there are people who are waiting in line. Then there's federal policy that's changed once Trump was elected and took office. But prior to that, it was weaker border enforcement. That began in 2021. Massive millions and millions and millions. I'd like to say over 10 million came over in a 4-year period. And California absorbed a large share of that. So listen, In-N-Out Burgers partial relocation from Irvine to Tennessee alongside the exodus of major corporations, Tesla and Chevrolet. And where are they going to Texas? I said Tesla and oh my God, I'm an idiot. So the major corporations, Tesla and Chevron, relocating to states like Texas and Tennessee. Look, that highlights California's challenging business climate. And I'm being polite by saying challenging business climate. It's more of an onerous business climate. It's marked by high taxes and regulations. And this trend is affecting thousands of jobs and is contributing to a shrinking tax base, which means they're going to tax us even more. And these policies, look, the LA wildfires, we're going to indirectly talk about that next, but or later, but they are going to get hit hard with more insurance taxes as insurance companies say, hey, for us to stay in the state, we got to raise our rates. So this democratic, socialist, authoritarian government we have, well, look, it's creating and making it difficult for businesses to stay, for constituents to stay. So to say we need policy adjustments, wow, that's being polite. We need massive change. And we need to support the taxpaying residents amidst all this economic pressure. And it's not happening, nor do I see it happening. So while California continues to face issues like increasing illegal immigration, as long as we stay a sanctuary state and other states start to align with President Trump's policies, these illegals are going to flee to our state. So you have an increase in illegal immigration, combined with the population decline. Our state's future economic stability is going to depend on balancing progressive policies and, in most cases, getting rid of them and combining that with competitive business incentives that get companies to stay here and to open up here and to come here. This is like what I just said. That's equivalent of winning the lottery. The odds of it happening, at least in the near future, is slim to none. But that's where we stand. Let me know your thoughts in the comments, because I think if you have a sound mind, whatever side of the aisle you're on, you will agree with me. All right. Let's get to some of our other stories here. Medi-Cal meltdown, unpacking California's not one, not two, not three, but 3.44 billion healthcare crisis. Look, so California's Medi-Cal program, yes, it's making headlines again, and not for the right reasons. There was a recent political article that talked about it, and I want to dive into it. It's a hefty $3.44 billion shortfall that's got supposedly has lawmakers scrambling. And we are raising questions about this, Gavin. Wink, wink. Have to play for the media and the constituents about the state's healthcare budget. So let's break it down into some key points here and determine what's really going on. Let's find out where the gap came from, how the state's responding, and what lawmakers think, and what it all means moving forward. So, what are the origins of the Medi-Cal shortfall? Well, first of all, the Medi-Cal is just the state's version of Medicaid. Again, $3.44 billion. And supposedly this is a big surprise to lawmakers, and it's tied to the rising costs over the recent years. So one of the problems lawmakers have is they're static. So when they say something, they view that as a permanent number, even though all it is a snapshot in time. Whew. Somebody accidentally almost ended my podcast here. Mr. Producer, stay alert. So what do I mean by static? Meaning they view that number as permanent. It's going to remain there. These numbers are never static when it comes to policy. So when you see rising costs, they are going to continue to increase. So they're like supposedly surprised, shocked, stunned. Are you an idiot? Yes, you are. Yes, you are. Politicians are elected by popularity vote, not by actual knowledge. So some of the dumbest people come to office making some of the worst decisions. So right now the state's projecting a $42 billion total spend for this upcoming fiscal year. And that's up $4.5 billion from the last budget, and which is creating a $3.44 billion shortfall. So while insuring undocumented immigrants is $8.4 billion this year and $7.4 billion for this upcoming fiscal year, is the biggest piece of it all. It's the biggest, bar none. Don't let somebody tell you, oh, it's only one piece. It is the biggest piece. I will say it's not the only piece. Pharmacy costs have spiked too. That's adding $1.3 billion 24, 25, and 1.2 billion in the upcoming 25, 26. But it's not all on Big Pharma. Why? Pharmacy costs have spiked due to increased demand for specialty medications that are more expensive, rising drug prices, and higher utilization rates among Medi-Cal beneficiaries. So all that you can actually peg on the illegal immigrants jacking it up, because without them, we'd still be at a level that would probably be at the border of the cost overrun or slightly over it, but not 3.44 billion. So yes, this is all based off illegal immigration. You pull them out and we're not talking this tale. So what's the state's immediate response? They're giving themselves an emergency loan. They're robbing from Paul to pay Peter. They're going into our general fund. So that means they're taking from a fund that's supposed to cover all kinds of other things to paying this Medi-Cal. So in other words, they're not doing anything to fix it. This is just a stopgap to keep the program from running amid the shortfall, but not a solution. I said that wrong. It's meant to keep the program running amid the shortfall. You know, despite the shortfall, the program will stay solvent, but it's not a solution. Now, they say, well, this is not a unique problem, Mr. or Mrs. Californian constituent. What's that? I can't see you over all the taxes you're paying. So they're stating that this is happening in red and blue states, but not at the extent of how it's happening here. And those states are leaving and removing their illegals. So their numbers based off the illegal immigration issue is going to drop. What irks me here is that both Democrats and Republicans say they were blindsided by the shortfall news. No, they were not. They're saying this for optics. Their claim to now be demanding more transparency is BS. They're calling Newsom out. Well, it's easy to call somebody who's termed out and look good. This is all dog and pony. They knew it was coming. They were forewarned. They do have some people who understand what's happening, and they were told. So them playing dumb is a lie. So it's a twofold battle. Republicans are obviously going to focus on the illegals, as they should, because that's where 90% of this costs, and where 90% of it could go away if we stop giving free everything that we can no longer afford. This is what Prop 187 back in the 90s, I want to say, was supposed to stop. But then they play the racism card. They play the you don't have no compassion card. But get this, California voted for 187, including legal immigrants here, because they saw what would happen. It was the courts that overturned it. On a side note, do you know, you may or may not know, but there has not been one legal marriage of gay individuals allowed in any state. Every state that has voted on it has voted it down. It was the courts that awarded it. Heaven help these judges if there is a civil war. But anyway, Republicans are smartly focusing on that. It's also a great campaign tactic. Now, the advocates say it's unfair to scapegoat this group when broader cost pressures like pharmacy expenses are also at play. Well, those costs are also directly attributed to a lot of the illegal aliens. So what's the future implications and challenges? Look, the loan only patches things up in the short term, and we still have not the possibility, but will happen, of a larger budget crisis later in 2025. Then you have federal cuts looming with federal aid being tied to some of this stuff. And if we keep harboring these people, we're not going to get federal aid. You're looking at Medicaid reductions. You're looking at all that. So there's going to be less money from the federal government. This is going to get worse before it gets better. There you have it. The Medi-Cal shortfall saga in a nutshell. Look, California's got a massive financial mess on its hand, and a quick fix loan in motion is not going to help. Then you have the lawmakers playing, I never saw it coming. Why didn't somebody warn me? They did. Stop lying. Then you got the national pressure again, as I've talked. Aid's going to be cut. So this is going to be the potential start of, I'll put it politely in the best terms I can, a bumpy ride. No, this is going to be a massive tax hit that will happen for us to foot all this, and they're going to justify it by calling us racist if we don't agree to it, or non-compassionate. This is a great campaign point. Where the hell is the CAGOP? I'm being rhetorical. Nowhere to be found. All right. Mayor Bass faces backlash and political pressures after the LA wildfires. Specifically, Poland ain't looking good, woman. So let's dive into an article I saw on Yahoo News. It may have come from the LA Times. They do a lot of regurgitating with agreements in place. But it's about Mayor Karen Bass and how Los Angeles residents are feeling about how she's handling the January wildfires. So the article had some good poll data. Oh, yeah. So it was it LA Times and I forget the other company. So this was from the LA Times. So there's a lot of politics involved in how they're trying to frame this. So let's walk through the numbers, the city's response, the criticism, and what's brewing politically, my friends. Straight from the truth interpreter, William del Pilar, your conservative Latino. So what's the public opinion on Bass's fire response? That's what it's a UC Berkeley Institute of Government Studies poll, co-sponsored by the LA Times, to give credit where it's due. It showed over 40% of LA registered voters rated Mayor Karen Bass' wildfire response as poor or very poor. So I had to have the producer pull that up, and that's a not a meme, but an image there of some of the wildfire fallout for you to see, and it's not good. And it's being brought to you by recallbassnow.com. Make sure you go to it. Make sure you help donate for the signature. It's being done by Nicole Shanahan, and unlike Republican elitists who miserably fail with Gascon and then try to overtake the recall of Newsom, she's not going to screw it up like our CAGOP lieutenants did. Okay, so the Berkeley Institute of Government Studies with LA Times, they said over 40% of LA registered voters stated Mayor Karen Bass wildfire response, as you can see, is poor or very poor, and only 19% gave her an excellent or good mark, with 22% calling it fair. Here's the kicker. Mayor Bass is fighting for her life, so she's breaking every Democrat rule. They're telling us, I don't have proof that this has been done, but their talking points are that they've restored power to nearly all Palisades buildings, that they listed the do not drink notice 18 months faster than the 2018 campfire recovery. You would think they would have learned from 2018 to get it posted, but the fact that it just happened and the fires took place in January, that does not bode as well as she thinks. FEMA's wrapping up its debris removal in 28 days. Now, they did say they were looking at 18 months. Or was that for permits? But anyway, it's not in all areas, just in certain areas. And God bless them. They should be doing that. But they also talked about reinforcing the burn areas before late winter storms, meaning, mudslides and things like that. So they've also set up recovery centers to cut through the red tape. But we've seen film and videos of this. It has not happened. So the message is not getting out. They may have given the order, but it's not yet happening. So they do say that recovery is months ahead of expectations. I do believe that when expectations are 18 months or longer, it's easy to cut through a lot of the red tape, because in the past they could afford to have their people suffer because they were going to get the Democrat vote. They know that's not necessarily the case here. So residents have ripped into Bass. Residents have ripped into Bass for being out of the country still. They're not letting that go. In fact, here's my invitation to the viral video. Ms. Bass, comment. And I need to go on for 2 more minutes to make it more realistic. And that was to the Sky News reporter at the airport. Then you have the gripes, not gripes, but the legitimate issues and complaints that the residents have about the faulty fire hydrants or low water pressure. They weren't checked and repaired. Then you have the $17 million budget cut, though Bass claims a $50 million boost via a new union deal, but it hadn't taken effect. And where was that money going to go to? A lot of union hacks. Then there's a recent friction between Karen Bass and the recovery czar, Steve Soborov, who said, hey, I'm supposed to be paid. Now I'm forced to do this for free because of optics. He's got a point. Then you got former Chief Kristen Crowley and the Firefighters Union pointing out to resource shortages. So she's on very shaky ground. In fact, she's not on shaky ground. She's in the sinkhole and she's trying to climb out of it. So as you saw with that image there's a recall effort against Bass, Nicole Shanahan, along with some Palisade residents. And these 330,000 signatures in a 4-month period to proceed, they will get it. Democrats do not mess around, unlike conservatives who chop the knees off for every grassroots type of activism like this. And then once they do accomplish it, despite the odds, then they try to co-opt it and take it over. We've got a bad party here. I don't think it's as tough a climb as they want to make it out to be. Then there's Rick Caruso. Trump beat him 55% to 45%. So that's close to being a landslide, but that's all a distant memory. We're looking at his new Steadfast LA Recovery Project, pushing forward in terms of he's going to ride the coattails of that because he's a builder. He knows how to get things done quickly and efficiently. He's going to use that backdrop as a potential political showdown if the recall doesn't toss her out. So that's the rundown. Over 40% of voters are unhappy with Bass. The recovery is moving faster than normal per what they're saying, but not entirely true as what we've seen with social media and the videos. People are talking about delays and they haven't gotten certain words. And that's not winning the hearts of Los Angelinos. Criticism is obviously piling up and the political ground shifting under her feet. That sinkhole is getting deeper and deeper. She's trying to keep her footing after playing politics over lives in the past, knowing it didn't matter. It does now. All right. Trump targets UC San Diego, funding threats over campus anti-Semitism. Look, let's do a quick dive into a story making waves out of San Diego. I love talking about San Diego, which is where we shoot this show from. Well, not technically San Diego city limits, but the greater San Diego area. I can't say where I live, but if you look it up, you probably can find it for the doxing. But the downside is I live in the rural area. You got to be careful if you dox me. We all know all the police here. They all know us, etc., etc. So here's a quick dive into the story making waves out of San Diego. And specifically, it's coming down on the University of California, San Diego from the Trump admin over anti-Semitism on their campus, which is not questionable. You look at the video, yes, there was anti-Semitism. And this is based off an Axios article. Well, let me give you the truth here, the ugly truth, with actual truth versus how Axios always has the leftist bent. So President Trump is threatening to cut federal funding to UC San Diego. It's one of a dozen universities, people, that have been accused legitimately of relentless anti-Semitic harassment and discrimination in terms of trying to disrupt campus life simply because they're Jewish. Now, this follows the heels of revoking $400 million in federal grants and contracts from Columbia University for reasons, again, that have been documented. Mahmoud Khalil was in charge of a group that was violently shutting down areas of access, creating embankments, and they were threatening the lives of Jews or Jewish students, to be specific. For those of you who say, no, well, you're relying. No, I'm not. When the university tells Jewish students, you can't come to class, your classes will be done via online mechanisms such as Zoom. Why? Because they feared for those Jewish students' lives and the violence that Mahmoud Khalil was encouraging and pushing. Same thing was happening at UC San Diego. Allegedly, in their eyes, the truth shall come out with the video, students testifying, etc. So what Trump's doing is signaling a broader crackdown and telling them, you better get your ducks in a row. You better get your house in order. The DOE sent letters to 60 universities, including UCSD and 9 other California schools. They warned of potential enforcement actions over these civil rights violations, these anti-Semitic actions. So some of the other big ones, obviously UCSD, but UC Berkeley's been named, Stanford University, and UCLA. And they've also launched an investigation into the University of California system. There's a whole slew of UC schools that were also sent notices. And a lot of these, it's not a matter of figuring out if they did allow anti-Semitic hostile work environment. It's a matter of like just getting their case and putting it together. So UCSD, they didn't share specifics about the investigation, and they referred inquiries to the president's office. But they're playing politics, and they're lying as they emphasize with its quote unwavering commitment to combating anti-Semitism and fostering a discrimination-free environment. Unquote. Damn liars. Last spring, UCSD, they saw a Gaza Solidarity encampment, which is illegal. Police dismantled it. They arrested 64 people, including students, but no charges were filed. Which all that does is encourage it to happen again. They also scored a D from the Anti-Defamation League. I'm not a big fan of the ADL, but in this case, they were right for how they handle anti-Semitism. What are the broader implications? Look, Trump's administration, this is what the article says. That has a history of targeting universities with funding threats over issues like medical research, diversity policies, and now campus protests. No, that's a complete lie. They're targeting the fact of how these acts are used to take the rights away from the political side that they don't agree with and promote it heavily to crossing the line with the groups whose ideology they agree with. So it's a stark difference here. That's why I tell you, I got to tell you the truth. Trump wouldn't be anywhere near there. He is nowhere near any university that did not allow the anti-Semitism, that did not go after conservatives for political ideology. He's going after bad actors that the authorities purposely allow to break laws, allow racism, and attack on political opponents, bigotry, etc. The DOE said there was a backlog of complaints left unresolved because the Biden administration refused to do their jobs. So in essence, all you're doing is getting Trump to follow the law here. And UC San Diego is the latest university to be hit with, you didn't follow the law. Shake your head, UC San Diego. I did not follow the law. So it's time to face the piper. After years and years of allowing racism, anti-Semitism, hate toward religions, and activist teachers fostering and promoting all of it. Campuses haven't allowed free expressions for generations, and that's allowed their progressive values to come to the forefront and to push hate at the expense of student safety, specifically Jews in this case. So this story here is just unfolding, and it's not going to get interesting. We're going to follow a path of activist judges defending them and allowing it, and then SCOTUS is going to have to get involved. And there you have it. Let us get to the Cali-Blitz, where I hit stories around the state and give you the quick and concise update in terms of what's happening. The Cali-Blitz #1, Newsom's Latinx claim under fire. I did a great short on Gavin Newsom. Check it out at Grumblings Media. I'm sorry, at youtube.com. And you will see it there about this whole Latinx and Newsom's podcasting issue. And it was we talked about it last week as well. So lots of information we're disseminating on that. So Governor Gavin Newsom asserted that his office never used the term Latinx. And obviously that's a lie. Fox News Digital revealed multiple instances of its use across the admin's records and statements. And obviously it's contradicting his claim. And he made a claim during his podcast, "This is Gavin Newsom," with Charlie Kirk on March 11th. So they found the term in official press releases, his personal and government X posts from 2019 to 2021, and obviously documents from his staff, which includes a letter in 2023 from his education policy advisor highlighting its repeated use in discussions regarding COVID-19 education and small business policies. So the term Latinx, it's intended as a gender-neutral alternative to Latino. We reject it. Us Latinos, we reject it. 51% of Latinos aren't even familiar with the term, and only 4% use it. And those 4%, they're Democrats. So Newsom has no credibility. So look, his public use and support of Latinx is well documented, as I just told you and showed you. Yet his narcissistic belief that he can lie unchecked is bolstered by a protective California media. And it blinds him to the national scrutiny he's going to face. He thinks he's going to get this support and protection from the mainstream media nationally. So he's a formidable figure because the guy is charismatic and just he's like a duck. The lies just roll off his skin like water does. But his arrogance also makes him vulnerable in broader politics. This is something you don't let him get away with it. We have to stay on top of it, and we shall easily defeat him. Cali-Blitz number 2, California's anti-self-defense bill faces defeat amid public cry. Self-defeat. So, on March 13, 2025, a controversial California bill was presented, and it was aimed at restricting our self-defense rights. And its sponsor, Assemblyman Rick the Idiot Zbier, withdrew it. Why? Public opinion. He wants to stay in power to keep getting richer, to enrich himself, to gain more power. That's the only reason he withdrew it. So there's obviously tension here between state gun control efforts and Second Amendment protections. So it was Bill 1333. It sought to amend the California Penal Code Section 197, potentially eliminating justifiable homicide in scenarios like defending your home or property. In essence, the guy could come at you with a knife, his own gun, come at you any way he wanted. And if you killed him, we're coming after you. That's in essence what the bill was looking to do in a nutshell. So it would force law-abiding citizens to hesitate, which meant, do I shoot it up? They're dead. To hesitate or retreat rather than protect themselves. Call the cops who could be minutes, 20, 30, 40, 50 minutes, a couple hours away to show up. Ludicrous and not realistic. So obviously it faced significant backlash and resistance from both, not us, the citizen, but law enforcement, including county sheriffs. They said it had vague language and potential to undermine personal safety. It's purposely vague so the courts could interpret it to its extreme. And California is full of activist judges. My take is simple. Look, the state's push to restrict self-defense aligns with a broader agenda to disarm us. This helps them secure the criminal vote. Just because they're criminals doesn't mean they can't vote. And this does nothing but prioritize offender rights and deters gun ownership in the broader picture through fear of prosecution, high costs, and delays. Meaning you're going to think twice about wanting to get a gun because of all the hazards that come with it. And that's what this bill was going to try to help do. Yet we push back. We're consistently thwarting these efforts. I used to donate to San Diego gun county owners. I just don't anymore. I just don't care for them and their politics and how they portray themselves and enrich themselves. But that's my personal take. But give to your local one if you feel good about where the money is going and who they're supporting and the battles they've chosen to take within the conservative realm. And that's my take. Cali-Blitz number 3, San Diego County Sanctuary Policy Vote fails amid controversy. All right, look, the San Diego County Board of Supervisors, they recently voted on a proposal to repeal the sanctuary jurisdiction status they've given, which helps protect illegals, which includes murderers and rapists and thieves. And the measure failed. It's a Democrat-controlled board. So this just happened recently. It was a 2-1-1 vote, falling short of the majority. They needed 3 votes needed to repeal it. So, and this means local law enforcement will continue to be restricted from transferring undocumented individuals, aka rapists, murderers, thieves, felons. Again, to reiterate, those convicted of serious crimes to ICE for deportation. And it also highlighted a strict partisan split here. Supervisor Jim Desmond and Joel Anderson, who Joel Anderson I've had issues with of recent, but they voted to repeal it, the 2 Republicans. Monica Montgomery opposed it, a Democrat, and Tara Lawson-Remmer abstained. No reason was given to abstain it. Now, let me tell you something about Monica Montgomery, Steve. I was at an event for a Board of Supervisors candidate I was actively helping, partially working as her campaign manager before she shifted to another race. And Monica Montgomery was running in another district for city council. They were telling Republicans, you got to vote for her. I'm like, no, you don't vote for anybody. She's a damn leftist, and she proved it here. She plays a race card. She plays a victim. She's a disgrace to Americans whether you're black or white or Latino or Asian, because she does not vote for her constituents. She's dictated on how to vote by her party. But yet she's got the Latino and black vote secured when she's not voting for our best interests, but voting for her party's best interest by who the rich donors tell her to vote for. Then Tara Lawson Rimmer, I don't know. But the point is this is common sense. You protect the constituent they don't want to. And let me tell you something else. Before Democrats dominated the San Diego Board of Supervisors, it was fiscally responsible and we had a surplus. But now it's in the red, borrowing from Peter to pay Paul. It supports undocumented illegals, illegal aliens, and it shields criminals, again, like the rapists and murderers. Look, who's at fault? It's the local Republican Party's inability to capitalize on these issues. And they let the board go from red to blue, and they saw it coming and did nothing. So this is a lack of backbone from our candidates and the party itself, and disarray. And this is unlikely to change until a strong leader starts to lead that party. And none of that is on the horizon. Cali-Blitz number 4, the FBI raid shakes Contra Costa political landscape. So the FBI raided a well-known connected Democrat political consultant's home. So this is obviously going to ignite intrigue and raise questions about the corruption and influence in the region's political sphere. This is mostly local, some state. So what happened on Thursday, or the last week, the FBI executed a search warrant at the Concord residence of Mary Jo Rossi, a prominent Democrat political consultant known for her success in electing influential and controversial Contra Costa County politicians. So this is, again, spreading speculation, taking it a level deeper about the scope of the ongoing investigation and potential ties it may have to the extensive network she's built, meaning other people at play here, donors, politicians, workers. So Rossi has been doing this for over 40 years. She's a veteran, and she's represented, again, controversial figures like former DA Mark Peterson, the Sino family, as well as the Garaventa family. There's no direct link to the raid has been confirmed to anybody else. So we're going to have tons of questions. My take is, look, the raid on Rossi's home not only targets a key political operative, but look, this hints at a broader web of implicated players. It will. Watch, wait and see. Who? Could be potential union members, associations, politicians. The depth of influence she has is extensive. And what's going to open it up is as they start to say, hey, we're going to prosecute you. You want to make a deal? More names will come out. So this is a promising high-stakes political drama along the House of Cards story type lines in the sense of how big it could be, but at a state and local level. Let's watch how this investigation unfolds. Cali-Blitz number 5, California's minimum wage hike triggers fast food job losses. Now, this is an older story. I just wanted to reiterate it because of In-N-Out leaving and how the whole fast food industry with the advent of the minimum wage. So California's fast food industry has faced significant upheaval because of a state-mandated wage increase, minimum wage increase. They've shed not hundreds, but thousands of jobs. And this highlights, obviously, a broader economic consequence, meaning higher fast food prices. So since Governor Newsom signed the law in September 2023, it went from $16 to $20 an hour. The state has lost over 14,000 jobs. This is a year old. So I would say there's probably 16,000 at least by now, or 17,000 at this point. So you're talking about a 25% labor cost, and I'm talking about 25% labor cost increases. And that's according to a study. 25%. So it went up a quarter, which means a quarter in price increases. And this is a ripple effect. It's forced employers to cut labor. It's given us price increases, and it's forced the closures of some fast food places. So, for example, you could have one fast food place service, two of them servicing, like, say, a 4 or 5 mile radius. Now it's only going to be one. And the margins are thin. And that's documented too. My take, look, minimum wage hikes don't just boost paychecks. They do to a few, but they also hand out hand out pink slips. And with lower profit margins and forced overpayment for labor that doesn't justify the cost, it's not going to get any better. We're losing jobs to politicians because they want to vote grab. Politicians who dodge accountability because they want to blame it on the corporations and businesses, while simply ignoring the supply and demand and market forces that work here. And that's an ugly truth workers don't want to look at. Why? Because schools don't teach you how to critically think, people. They indoctrinate you. Business bad. Democrats help us poor. And they're not. They're actually giving you more pink slips. So look, I had my own experience when the state minimum wage was raised. I didn't hire more people. I gave them raises, but they had less hours and they were expected to do more, or I would move on to somebody else who would. I had an oversaturation of people who wanted to work in the fantasy sports industry. If they didn't cut it by our standards, and we had high standards, not unrealistic, but just high standards, they moved on. And they all responded. You know why? They got to make their own schedule. Most of them were college kids. And the fact that they could make their own schedule, and once we aligned them, they did their job, even though it was a harder burden on them. Cali-Blitz number 6, Central Valley oil distributor warns against state-owned refineries. You think a Central Valley oil distributor has said or voiced strong opposition to California's potential move towards state-owned oil refineries. A shift like that could jeopardize fuel supply stability and economic efficiency. In other words, the state or government can't do anything better than a private organization. And we had over 20 some odd refineries. We're down to like, I want to say 14 because they fled because of overregulation and unrealistic climate regulatory issues. And there are clear examples of government screwing it up. Amtrak, USPS, the Postal Service, and the Tennessee Valley Authority. That's always been a major mess up, screw up, since FDR implemented it. Look at Venezuela, with their state-controlled oil industry now. It's so corrupt, too. Look, we run off the refineries, and now we say we're going to invest and create state-owned ones. Again, ask Venezuela how well that worked out. Look at Amtrak, TVA, Postal Service. None of it works. The truth that leftists refuse to believe is that private refineries outperform government ventures, and history proves that true. Cali-Blitz number 7. Key issues in California's landlord-tenant disputes. This is ongoing. I just read another story about it. A woman's family leased out their home, and now they got squatters who just refuse to pay, and they still have to pay the rent, the utilities, everything as such. So now you have unauthorized occupants, and they've actually exploited their own bankruptcy filings to extend their stay, with the courts protecting them. So this leaves homeowners paying the mortgage out of pocket, paying utilities, receiving no rent. And a lot of people do this to invest in their security, have little extra income. They're working class, maybe a bit above average working class, but they're still working class. Delayed court processing, judges siding with the squatters, politicians most definitely siding with the squatters, and there's no resolution in sight. And thousands of cases, hundreds of thousands around the country, including Europe, are seeing people having to sell off their cheap, or not even sell off, but have to kind of cut their losses and just move on. State doesn't mind that because they'll eventually kick those people out and take control. So California's tenant protection laws, such as Tenant Protection Act, AB 1482, that's what's created this legal environment where landlords and homeowners' property rights are taken from them in the name of justice, social justice. Tenants can remain in properties without paying rent for extended periods of time, sometimes years. So look, people are saying, look, state legislature, you need to revisit this, or federal government, please get involved. So the government knows this is happening, and they're doing nothing to combat it. It's not just here, but around the country, as I said. We've gone from displacing our citizens/constituents' rights to giving them to illegals and squatters and the homeless. And again, the homeowners are forced to continue paying the bills. I'm hoping for a class action lawsuit, not just against the state, but the utility companies that know this is happening and refuse to cut off the heating, the gas, whatever. Why? Because courts tell them to, not to. So the courts are involved. Impeachments need to happen. There must be a balance here, but this is a travesty. They all know it. This is also a great campaign issue, Republican Party. But hey, you couldn't find whatever the analogy is, a hole in the wall if you were standing in front of it. Cali-Blitz number 8, racial discrimination in college admissions, the case of Stanley Zong. Look, Stanley Zong is a high-achieving Asian American. 18-year-old at the time, 4.4 GPA, 1590 SAT score. Yeah, 1590. He was rejected by 16 out of 18 colleges, including 5 UC schools, for one reason. They refused to give him admittance because he was Asian over blacks and Latinos. And yet Google hired him for a PhD level software engineering position straight out of high school. And this prompted with 100% truthful claims of racial discrimination against highly qualified Asian American candidates in college admissions. We already saw this happen at the Supreme Court level and Harvard laws. Look, this is nothing but, you talk about systemic racism, this is actual systemic racism. It's a whole system in place to keep high-ranking Asians out. So obviously, this has reignited the racial debate that SCOTUS already decided on. So this is going to be a quick case, probably going to have some kind of big-time out-of-court settlement. And I hope the Trump's administration comes down on the UC system. They're already investigating it for anti-Semitism, and they'll come across others and add to it. At what point do we treat racism and discrimination equally across all groups? Racism is hate, people. It's taught, and we see it when you prioritize one group or culture over another. There's not just one single group that is racist. They're all racist. Or rather, they all have racism. Asians have had to face blatant discrimination. The railways, World War II internments. So probably as much, if not more, than blacks and more so than Latinos have in the past 100 years. Yeah, you have your property taken away. You're chosen, discriminated against. And what happened? They overachieved. They buckled down and did well academically. So they've had collectively their homes and property seized over the past 100 years, as well as their legal rights taken away. And that should not be overlooked. When you have to have laws in place to protect you down the road, that tells you something. So continuing to favor others for overcoming or overachievement while rewarding less deserving individuals is unjustifiable in a merit-based society. The problem is they're trying to change us from a merit-based society, which does nothing but destroy the nation from within. Cali-Blitz number 9, transgender athletes absent, exposes teen dependency and sparks debate. Look, a California girls basketball playoff team has become a flashpoint. San Francisco Waldorf got blown out without their key player, a boy playing in girls sports claiming he's transgender. He didn't play in the game. They got whacked by like 20 points. The school didn't offer a reason why he didn't play. So they suffered a decisive 56-30 loss, 26-point loss to Cornerstone Christian. Damn those Christians. In a playoff game last month. Why? They were without, again, their star transgender identifying player, Henry Hanlon, who was averaging 20.2 points per game. They were just standing around while he did all the work, and he would feed them. So this actually just showed a heavy reliance on one person, the boy, and it does raise questions about competitive balance. Intensifying debates over transgender athletes in girls' sports. And this is in defiance of a federal executive order. They in trouble, Lucy. So critics obviously say this is about fairness. No, it's not about fairness. It's about protecting women in female sports. And so this sets up Donald Trump against Gavin Newsom, who he himself said this is unfair. He was obviously lying as he eyes plans for 2028. Look, this outcome reveals a stark truth. Remove the male-born athlete and the team crumbles, proving dependence over equity. This is about the team wanting to win so bad. This isn't about fairness, but political agendas. And while hope flickers for a change, accountability must target leaders like Newsom who've backed this divisive policy despite his later posturing. And there you have it, my friends. The fired up the California version. Fired Up California. I hope you enjoyed the show. Do not forget to like and share this episode. You can also find this episode at YouTube, Rumble, Apple, Spotify, y Pandora under the handle Grumblings Media. And you can also, you can't also, please bookmark grumblingsmedia.com. So Grumblings Media is a profile handle. Grumblingsmedia.com is the website. Please bookmark it. And until next week, my friends, do not forget to like and share this podcast. And for Fired Up California, I am William Del Pilar, and I bid you adieu.
Hey everybody, this is Big John from Grumblings Media, and I just want to say thank you for watching our content. If you want to support our efforts here at Grumblings Media, just smash the subscribe button right here, totally free, or just go ahead and consume more of our great content. Click either one of these two boxes.